My best friend, Mu Wan, was infertile. After I gave birth, she plotted to have me sold into the remote mountains. She took my child and then seamlessly married my husband, Gu Feng. After I was rescued and returned, my husband, my son, and even my mother-in-law all sided with her. Wan and I are married now. Why did you even come back? You should have just died out there. In the end, I was truly killed by Mu Wan. And Gu Feng was right there comforting her. Heaven has eyes. I actually reincarnated back to the very day I was supposed to marry Gu Feng. Facing the crowd of family and friends, I chose to call off the engagement on the spot. I'd like to see how she's going to marry into the Gu family without me, her stepping stone for bearing children. Hearing the chatter outside, my heart swelled with wild, unrestrained joy. I had returned, I was back, on this very day over a decade ago. The day I was to marry Gu Feng and I were childhood sweethearts. Our families had arranged our marriage when we were just children. Today was supposed to be our wedding day, yet Gu Feng was nowhere to be seen to fetch his bride. Others may be in the dark, but I know the truth. Right now, he's at the hospital, keeping my delicate, charming best friend company, with Muan's sweet whispers and gentle words. She's probably already got Gu Feng wrapped around her little finger. I just wonder, without me smoothing the way this time, whether a woman who can't bear children will ever make it through the Gu family's front door. The commotion outside continued unabated, so I walked straight out of the dressing room, looking out at the sea of family and friends. I took the microphone from the host and began to let loose. Thank you all for taking the time to be here for my wedding, but the ceremony ends here today. Gu Feng and I have known each other for over 20 years. Today was supposed to be our wedding day. Yet he abandoned me to go take care of Mu Wan. As a woman, I cannot spend my life with a man like that. With that, 2 crystal clear tears rolled down my cheeks at the perfect moment, and I left everyone with nothing but my desolate silhouette. That Wan girl is just despicable. Absolutely. Shen Miao and Gu Feng were the perfect golden couple we all watched grow up. What a shame. Well, there's no smoke without fire. Haven't you heard? Gu Feng is with Mu Wan right now. Listening to the chatter around me, the corner of my mouth lifted in an almost imperceptible smirk. This time, I'm going to strike first and brand these two as the scumbag and the tramp they are, nailing them to the pillar of shame. Before long, the commotion outside the door died down. After seeing the guests off, my mother held me and burst into tears. My father sat nearby, silent, his face dark and stormy. In my past life, after I went missing, my mother cried until she went blind. And my father spent the family fortune, all in a desperate search for me. But just as our family of 3 was finally reunited, I was killed by Muan, after searching for their daughter for over a decade, only to have her die right before their eyes upon her return. That must have been more painful than death itself for them. Now, seeing them again, I couldn't hold back my tears. Seeing me like this, my mother quickly pulled me into her arms to comfort me. They simply thought I was furious with Gu Feng. After calming my parents down, I went straight to the Gu residence. Since I was calling off the engagement, certain matters naturally needed to be laid out and settled clearly. I had just arrived at the Gu family home when I ran into Gu Feng, who was returning from the hospital. His face lit up when he saw me. Meow meow. I'm so sorry. Muan had a heart attack today, so I had to take her to the hospital first. But then, I don't know why, I fell asleep. The same excuse as in our past life, but this time, I wrenched my hand away from his. Gu Feng, let's just call it quits. My words made his tall frame stagger. Then he held me in a death grip, trying to explain himself and promising he would treat me right from now on. What a hypocrite. He could abandon me at our own wedding. And now he has the nerve to stand here and claim he'll be good to me. How pathetic. I let out a cold sneer, watching Muan beside me seething with hatred. Meow meow. It's all my fault. It's all because of my weak constitution. If I end up being a burden to you all, I'd rather just die. Muan stood to the side, weeping pitifully. As she spoke, she clutched her chest, gasping for breath. The sight of it absolutely broke Gu Feng's heart. He held her trembling, unsteady form and comforted her without pause. Wan, this has nothing to do with you. Please, don't dwell on it. Meow meow is the most understanding person. She definitely won't blame you. After saying that, he even gave me a meaningful look, signaling for me to back him up. I scoffed. The sheer audacity. Exactly. It takes 2 to tango. If you're going to blame me, you have to blame yourself too. Under their stunned gazes, I gave each of them a resounding slap. Shen Miao, have you lost your mind? The sharp crack of my slap was met with the piercing shriek of Gu Feng's mother, Wang Feng. In the Gu family's living room, Wang Feng stared back at me without a shred of remorse. Even if Feng'er was in the wrong, he is still your husband. Apologize to him right now, and we'll let this go. Otherwise, I won't acknowledge you as my daughter-in-law anymore. I could only let out a bitter, hollow laugh. Wang Feng deserves a great deal of credit for Gu Feng turning out the way he has. A doting mother often ruins her son. The ancients truly did not deceive us. In her eyes, no matter why I hit Gu Feng, the fact that I laid a hand on him makes it my fault. And I'm supposed to apologize. Take a good look in the mirror and see if you're even worthy. I walked up to Gu Feng and asked, do you think what your mother said was right? My composure made Gu Feng a little flustered. He took my hand and promised me that he would never let me down in the future, and that I didn't need to apologize. Seeing his earnest expression, I let out a light chuckle before delivering another heavy slap across his face. Even a clay figure has its temper. After I repeatedly humiliated Gu Feng, he finally couldn't hold back his anger. Shin Miao, after all these years of friendship, must you cling so stubbornly to this one trivial matter? When did you become so petty? This time, I offered no rebuttal. Instead, I let my actions prove just how petty I could be. I couldn't help but slap Gu Feng again, and even went on to wreck the Gu family's home, amidst Wang Feng's incessant stream of curses. I found a suitable tool and smashed everything breakable in the Gu household. After over a decade of silent endurance in the mountains in my past life, I finally let it all out in this moment. Looking at the utter chaos strewn across the floor, I felt thoroughly satisfied. As I was leaving, I looked at Muan, who was sobbing pitifully, and said with biting sarcasm, thank you for always stopping us from getting our marriage certificate. It's actually been a huge help to me now, but I'd advise you to stop scheming for Gu Feng. The Gu family would never accept a woman who can't bear children into their home, would they? My words successfully put the two women present on high alert. Early the next morning, Muan started putting on a show right outside my door. Auntie, it's all my fault. My health failed me, and Brother Gufeng only missed the wedding because he had to take me to the hospital. Every bit of this is my mistake. My mother is a gentle and timid woman. Faced with Muan's relentless, desperate apologies, she was so flustered she just kept pacing back and forth by the door. After I went out, I immediately stepped in front of my mother, shielding her. When Muan saw me, she dropped to her knees right in front of me with a thud. She was weeping pitifully, begging for my forgiveness. At this moment, if I were to remain aggressive, it would only make me seem heartless. Since he's willing to put on an act, I'll play along. Wan, what are you doing? I know you've liked Gu Feng since we were kids. When we were kids, you even wrote love letters to Gu Feng. The day before my wedding, you begged me to give him up for you. And now that I'm giving him to you, what more do you want from me? By the end, I was sobbing uncontrollably, gasping for air. My voice was hoarse and ragged. That last part was a lie, of course, but her feelings for Gu Feng, her desire to marry him, were absolutely real. What happened yesterday, on top of everything else, made the neighbors who saw how far I was being pushed start to feel it was too much to watch. One of the aunties couldn't hold back any longer and stepped forward. Wan, stop coming here to cause trouble. You should go home now. Once one person spoke up, the rest of the onlookers joined in. Muan knelt there, her body swaying almost imperceptibly, his hand at his side involuntarily clenched into a fist. Her frail figure knelt there, a sight that tugged at the heartstrings. Combined with the pointing and whispering of the onlookers, she looked every bit the picture of a bullied, pitiful soul. And this very scene happened to be witnessed by Gu Feng, who had rushed back just in time to play the hero. He ran over and, without a word of explanation, accused me. Shin Miao, you've gone too far. Watching Gu Feng's complete lack of judgment, I couldn't help but sigh inwardly. I must have been blind to have ever been interested in him. Thankfully, fate took pity on me and gave me another chance to turn over a new leaf. The moment Muan saw Gu Feng, her already unsteady legs gave way, and she collapsed to the ground. Seeing the way Gu Feng lunged forward was a real eye-opener for me. Muan is truly a 1996 Longjing T, a real piece of work. In that case, I'll give her a hand. I turned back into the room, fetched a basin of cold water, and before anyone could react, splashed the entire thing over Muan, accompanied by a fit of coughing. Muan slowly came to. Seeing her put on that innocent act, I said with dripping sarcasm, well, it seems I have quite the medical talent. I've managed to cure your little sister's chronic fainting spells. Someone in the crowd couldn't help but snort with laughter. Muan was mortified. She couldn't very well fake another faint, so she just stood there, her face pale with fury. I shot a look at an older woman in the crowd, and she immediately spoke up. TSK, look at those two, all lovey-dovey. How shameless. No wonder Shin Miao called off the engagement. We all live in the same neighborhood and love a bit of gossip. Once one person started talking, the others just couldn't hold back. The whispers and pointing from behind finally got to Gu Feng. his expression darkened. He shot me a glare, abandoned Muwan right there, and stormed off without a backward glance. This time, Muwan not only failed to get my forgiveness, but she also completely ruined her own reputation. I slammed the door shut, unable to bear the sight of her wretched state. In my past life, I had barely managed to escape from the remote mountains. Instead of comfort from my family, I was met with their cold, cutting words. Gu Feng held Muwan in his arms, watching my humiliation with a cold gaze. He even offered me money to stay away from her. Even the children I risked my life to bring into this world have all taken her side, standing firmly behind Muwan. This time, I will make sure they lose everything. Good news stays at home, but bad news travels far and wide, and gossip this juicy. It spread like wildfire, reaching every ear in just a few days. The three of our families lived close by, and the three of us grew up together. Seeing things fall apart like this has left many people sighing with regret. Some parents even went so far as to tell their daughters to stay away from Muwan. Muwan's reputation was completely ruined. She hid at home every day, refusing to come out. Gu Feng, however, kept showing up at my door. His reason was simple. He still wanted to marry me. In his explanation, Muwan was always just a sister, while I was his wife, the one meant to spend my life with him. It never crossed his mind that I would leave. When he showed up at my door again, I softened my tone and invited him out for a meal. This time, I was going to shatter his illusions for good. In the meantime, I also sent a text message to Muwan. Inside the private dining room, the three of us stared at each other in awkward silence. After a long pause, Gu Feng, his anger barely contained, demanded to know why I had called Muwan over. Hearing this, Muwan couldn't help but sway slightly on her feet. This time, however, she didn't pretend to faint or say a word. Instead, she just stared at Gu Feng with tear-filled eyes. Her gaze made Gu Feng feel utterly ashamed of himself. At the dinner table, the three of us ate in complete silence. The private room was so quiet you could only hear the sounds of our meal. Just as Gu Feng looked at me and was about to speak, his head lolled to the side and he collapsed, unconscious, onto the table. Seeing Gu Feng faint, Muwan dropped the act and shed her pitiful facade. What exactly are you trying to do? Her tone was laced with wariness. I couldn't help but let out a snort of laughter. What do I want? Let me guess what you want instead. First, you want me to marry Gu Feng and bear his child. Then, you'll find a way to get rid of the mother and keep the child, so you can successfully take my place. With every word I spoke, Muwan's face grew paler. This time, it didn't seem like an act. She was genuinely terrified, because I was describing exactly what she had been scheming all these years. Her thoughts laid bare. Muwan looked utterly flustered, yet she still tried desperately to explain. And no, that's not it. Watching her feign composure, I decided to pour fuel on the fire. If you think you can use me to get into the Gu family, you can forget it. I don't want this man anymore. With a glance at Gu Feng, I turned and walked away. As I left, I gave Muwan's shoulder a reassuring pat, urging her to seize this opportunity. After all, opportunities like this don't come around twice. After stepping out of the private room, I didn't leave immediately. Instead, I found a secluded spot to observe Muwan's every move. I watched her check in at the front desk, watched her slowly help Gu Feng into the room. Even someone as clever as Muwan couldn't hold back in the end, but for her, a sickly woman, marrying Gu Feng was the best possible outcome. In her past life, she meticulously planned every step and ultimately found happiness. In this life, I'll help her marry Gu Feng, then watch them become a bitter, resentful couple, torturing each other in misery. When the timing felt right, I paid a street cleaner to call both sets of parents, even giving them the room number. Over the phone, I could clearly hear Wang Feng's shriek and the ensuing panic. In less than half an hour, Wang Feng arrived at the hotel, yet, she lingered at the entrance for a long time, never quite stepping inside. In stark contrast, Mrs. Mu, who arrived shortly after, charged eagerly into the hotel with a smile on her face. Wang Feng tried to stop her, but it was no use. Watching them go in one after the other, I took the hotel stairs up as well. As soon as I reached the stairwell landing, I could hear Muwan's tearful sobs and Wang Feng's furious voice coming from inside the room. You little tramp, scheming your way into my son's bed. Let me make one thing clear, even after this, don't you dare dream of marrying into our Gu family. A barren hen like you, daring to set your sights on our Gu Feng. I may not care for Shen Miao, but at least she's better than you. Why don't you take a good, hard look at yourself in the mirror and see what you really are? I have to admit, experience really does count. Wang Feng's scolding was so fierce that Muwan even forgot to cry. It was Muwan's mother who stepped in to mediate, first telling the two of them to get dressed. Gu Feng didn't say a word the entire time. Once dressed, Mu Wan's head cleared, and she immediately started slinging mud at me. Auntie, I truly don't know how things ended up like this. It was Shin Miao. She was the one who asked me to come here. After that, I don't know what happened. Mu Wan pinned everything on me, casting herself as the victim. Gu Feng, who had been standing silently to the side, ground out my name through clenched teeth. His voice was dripping with hatred. I clicked my tongue in disapproval and quickly backed away from the staircase. The real show was just beginning, and I needed to hurry back to my spot to wait for them. I had barely stepped inside, taken a sip of water, when Gu Feng arrived at my door with Mu Wan in tow, in the dead of night. The pounding on the door was thunderous. It wasn't just my household that was roused. Neighbors were peeking out their doors too. The moment we saw it was just us again, everyone snapped to attention, their eyes alight with excitement. Gu Feng looked at me, his eyes filled with pain. Meow meow, even if you hate me, you shouldn't stoop so low. I'm truly disappointed in you. Unbelievable, just unbelievable. Gu Feng wants to play the saint, but I refuse to be his stepping stone. I rolled my eyes and asked them impatiently what on earth they meant. Mu Wan stepped forward, sobbing. Meow meow, was it you who drugged us? The three of us ate together. So why is it that when the two of us woke up, we were, she left the rest unsaid, but as she tilted her head slightly, the red mark on her neck was clearly visible to everyone. I clicked my tongue a couple of times, looking Mu Wan up and down. She's really something else, even with Gu Feng in that state. She still managed to put on such a lively show all by herself. I didn't flinch, standing face to face with Mu Wan. You're saying I framed you? Fine, let's call the police. Let's see where that drug came from and who booked the room for you. Or what? Did I hold your heads down and force you two into bed? I paused, facing the crowd. My eyes welled up with tears, but I put on a brave face. Everyone knows Gu Feng abandoned me on our wedding day to take care of Mu Wan. Now you've done something dirty and want to pin it on me. Isn't that just going too far? A clear conscience fears no accusation. If you're not afraid of airing our dirty laundry in public, then let's just call the police. The righteous conviction in my words made everyone's sympathy sway in my direction, almost in unison. After all, if I'm willing to call the police, it proves I have nothing to hide. In contrast, Mu Wan looked thoroughly guilty the moment I mentioned getting a room. Everyone there, except for Gu Feng, could see the situation more clearly than we could. While no one said it out loud, they all knew exactly what was going on. The disgust on everyone's faces spoke volumes. By now, Wang Feng had also pieced together the truth. She yanked Mu Wan aside, her face breaking into a smile as she looked at me with gentle, affectionate eyes. Meow meow, dear, I've watched you grow up. Gu Feng was a bit of a scoundrel before, but you're the only one in his heart. And you're the only daughter-in-law I'll ever accept. Our Gu family isn't some place just anyone can waltz into. Wang Feng's words were a complete and utter humiliation for Mu Wan, rubbing her face in the dirt. Truth be told, I knew exactly what Wang Feng was thinking. Mu Wan is sickly, prone to fainting spells, and the crucial point is, she can't have children. No matter my flaws, I'm at least a fully capable, healthy woman who can bear children, and with my gentle, pliable nature. She finds me easy to control. That's why she's now putting on this act of being the perfect mother-in-law, begging me to come back. Auntie, Gu Feng and I have run our course. Since he and Mu Wan are so clearly in love, I'll step aside and let them be. Consider it my final gesture for the history we share. With that, I took my parents' hands and turned to go back inside. Outside the house, Mrs. Mu was not at all pleased with Wang Feng's attitude. For Gu Feng to think he could take advantage of our pure, unmarried daughter, Wan, and just get away with it without a word, that's pure fantasy. Outside the door, the sound of Mrs. Mu and Wang Feng arguing was incessant. Inside the room, my parents looked at me with deep concern. Meow meow, are you absolutely sure about this? After a long moment of hesitation, my mother couldn't help but ask. I've been trailing after Gu Feng since we were kids. As I grew up, my feelings for him only deepened. They've seen it all, so it's only natural they're worried, now that I'm being so resolute. Mom, Dad, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Why should I waste my time on one rotten tree, especially one that's already tainted? Seeing that I had truly moved on, my mom was finally at ease. I then shared my own plans. I wanted to join the company. Hearing this, my father looked up in surprise. This time, I didn't back down. In my past life, I was completely devoted to Gu Feng. After we married, I essentially became the full-time housekeeper for the Gu family. All the company's responsibilities fell squarely on my father's shoulders. And then, I disappeared. My parents had no heart for running the business anymore, pouring all their energy into searching for me. In the end, Our family company was swallowed up by Gufeng. If I could do it over, I would never let this happen again. Thanks to my father's arrangements, I successfully entered the family company. I threw myself headfirst into the work, rooting out all the bad apples within the company. I never would have known if I hadn't looked into it. It turns out our Shin family company had spies planted by the Gu family. Gufeng must have had his eye on our company for a long time, but it's fine, this time. I'm settling all scores and righting every wrong. Just as I was throwing myself headlong into my career, my mom gave me some news. Muwen is going to marry Gufeng. When I heard the news, my mind went blank for a moment, then came the shock. Muwen is frail and unable to bear children. How could Wang Feng possibly agree to let her into the family? Yet, looking at the invitation in my mother's hand, I couldn't help but laugh. Regardless, the two of them ended up together in the end. I heard that not long ago, Muwen's mother made a huge scene at the Gu family's doorstep. It was quite the ugly spectacle, given the circumstances. The only reason Wang Feng would let Muwen in is if Muwen has some dirt on her. The moment that thought crossed my mind, I immediately sent someone to investigate. I had just hung up the phone when the doorbell rang. It was Muwen. Seeing the smug smile on her face, it all suddenly made sense. She stole Gufeng away and now she's here to gloat. Before I could even get a word out, Muwen started with her fake, sweet talk. Meow meow, Gufeng and I are getting married soon. Will you be my bridesmaid? Muwen still wore that delicate, fragile facade, but the triumphant glee in the corners of her eyes and brows was impossible to hide. So you really think you're the main event now, treating me like some discarded, unwanted wife. Seeing that I remained silent, Muwen then earnestly invited me to be her bridesmaid. The three of us grew up together. Now, we'd love for you to witness our happiness. I let out a cold laugh and took the invitation from her hand. Don't worry, I'll be sure to give you both a memorable gift. Muwen thought I was just putting on a brave face, and even had the nerve to patronize me with her fake sympathy. She even had the gall to offer to set me up on a date. Watching her get more and more carried away, I turned around, went inside, fetched a basin of cold water, and splashed the entire thing right over her. As she shrieked, I spoke coldly. Are you awake now? Do you really think marrying Gufeng is your ticket to an easy life? He's the only male heir in 3 generations of the Gu family. If the line ends with you, what do you think his mother will do? I didn't finish my sentence, but what I had said was enough to make Muwen break out in a cold sweat. Yet, Muwen was only flustered for a moment before she continued. Auntie likes me very much. Even without a child, she wouldn't blame me. Muwen said this with absolute certainty. It was as if she had already reached some kind of understanding with Wang Feng. After she left, I immediately had someone look into Muwen and Wang Feng for me. The Gu family agreed far too quickly. Something about it just doesn't sit right with me. I know that woman, Wang Feng, better than anyone. In her eyes, no one is ever good enough for her son. In my past life, I was gentle and obedient, always deferring to Gufeng. After marriage, I devoted myself wholeheartedly to the Gu family, and within a year, I bore them a pair of twins. That finally made Wang Feng look upon me a little more favorably. But now, Muwen is frail and cannot conceive. Even her marriage into the Gu family might have been a calculated scheme. The fact that Wang Feng didn't even make a scene is clearly not normal. When something seems off, there's always a reason. Their wedding is still over a month away, which gives me plenty of time to get a lot done. Besides investigating Muwen, the most important thing is dealing with company matters. During this time, Gufeng has been so distracted by family issues that he's been making repeated mistakes in his company decisions. And this is my golden opportunity. Our two companies' core businesses are strikingly similar. The opportunity Gufeng lost is one I can now firmly seize. Now, we both set our sights on the same plot of land in the Eastern District. This land is incredibly valuable. In the future, it won't just be filled with skyscrapers. Shopping malls and hospitals will also spring up here. Gufeng had a great eye. In his previous life, when he won the bid for this plot of land, many said he was just a brash young man, but later, reality gave them a stinging slap in the face. This time, I won't be handing such a golden opportunity over to Gufeng. The auction arrived right on schedule. As luck would have it, Gufeng's seat was right next to mine. When he saw me, a flicker of pity and heartache showed in his eyes. If there weren't so many people around, I would have slapped him across the face without a second thought. He's still putting on an act at a time like this. It's absolutely disgusting. Meow meow, just give up on this plot of land. I stared at him as if he were an idiot, bracing myself for whatever nonsense was about to come out of his mouth next. I know you're doing this to get back at me, but I'm determined to win this bid. The Shin family is no match for the Gu family. Once again, I was utterly dumbfounded by Gu Feng's sheer arrogance. I let out a dry, hollow chuckle. He's quite the imaginative one, but it's fine to let him think that. When the auction began, I didn't raise my paddle. It wasn't until Gu Feng raised the bid to 50 million and everyone else dropped out that I started to challenge him. In his past life, Gu Feng used 50 million to forge a legend. In this life, I'm going to make him a complete and utter fool. When the price hit 90 million, I saw beads of sweat breaking out on Gu Feng's forehead. There was a new hint of reproach in the look he gave me. Shin Miao, have you lost your mind? Do you have any idea how much 90 million is? I looked at him and gave a scornful laugh. None of your damn business. It's my money and I'll spend it how I like. If you're too scared to bid, then get lost. My vulgarity and contempt had thoroughly enraged Gu Feng. Gritting his teeth, he raised his bidding paddle one more time. 100 million. Then, he shot me a challenging look. This time, I didn't raise the bid. I never intended to win that land parcel anyway. I was just driving up the price. All of this was a trap set for Gu Feng. Having taken over the company less than a year ago, he desperately needed a major success to prove himself to the shareholders. Today's auction was supposed to be the launchpad for his rise as a new business magnate. Instead, it will mark the beginning of his downfall at my hands. This plot of land has tremendous appreciation potential, but it will still require a significant financial outlay to develop. The Shin family's current funds simply cannot support a project of this scale. In his previous life, Gu Feng acquired it for 50 million and only managed to develop it with the Shin family's backing. Now, the price has doubled. One look at Gu Feng's stormy expression told me just how much trouble he was in for, but I chose to ignore it all. I stood up and offered him a sarcastic congratulations. Mr. Gu, your financial might is truly impressive. Our Shin family admits defeat. Half a month after the auction, a furious Gu Feng stormed into my office. Shin Miao, you set me up on purpose, didn't you? After half a month apart, Gu Feng looked considerably more disheveled, with stubble shadowing his jaw. I clicked my tongue twice, looking at him with a half-smile. Mr. Gu, are you here because you're strapped for cash and need help, or are you here to demand an explanation? Gu Feng hadn't been doing well lately. Being pestered by Muwen every day was bad enough. But now I'm also getting pressure from the company's shareholders. Ever since he won that land parcel at auction, the Gu family's accounts have been drained. He spends every day either whining and dining to secure investments, or on his way to do just that. Meanwhile, not long ago, I managed to buy up the land surrounding his at a rock-bottom price. You can't make bricks without straw. With no money, Gu Feng has no choice but to kowtow to everyone. Begging for favors, Gu Feng finally spoke up. Looking at me with that half-smile of his, Meow Meow, I know you're getting back at me. You've succeeded. If you're willing, you can still be the bride at the wedding in a few days. When the time comes, it'll be a powerful alliance. Considering I was trafficked into the mountains in my past life, I'm no stranger to life's storms. Yet, I was still stunned by his words. At this point, he's still living in a fantasy world. If you think you can get something for nothing, you'd better check if I'm willing to play along. Gu Feng, I've come to realize you're simply not good enough for me. I'm not just attractive, I'm financially independent too. And you? Pfft. I looked Gu Feng up and down. I didn't say a word, but my whole demeanor screamed one thing: trash. Even after being humiliated like that by me, Gu Feng still didn't leave. Even if we can't be husband and wife, we're still childhood friends. We can work together to take a piece of this pie. Gu Feng was truly at the end of his rope. There was even a note of pleading in his voice. In all my life, I had never seen Gu Feng look so utterly defeated. As a child, he was a top student, the star of the class. As an adult, he became the golden boy, destined for greatness. And now, I've driven him to the point where he's like a stray dog with nowhere to go. This pitiful state of his is the spitting image of when I first escaped from the mountains. Back then, I was filthy from head to toe. My hair a tangled mess from long neglect. When the police brought me to the Gu residence, the disgust in his eyes was completely undisguised. He even asked me subconsciously, "How are you still alive?" He genuinely wished for my death. My very existence was a stain on his reputation as an entrepreneur. So, when Muwen accidentally pushed me into the middle of the road and I was hit by a car, a flicker of delight passed through his eyes. The tables have turned. Now he's groveling at my feet, begging for mercy and hoping I'll let him off the hook. How could a minor setback like this ever make up for the agony I endured back then? Mr. Gu, if you're willing, I can purchase that plot of land you hold. While everyone currently thinks Gu Feng's purchase of that land was foolish, it won't be long before the government invests significant resources into developing the area. And now is the perfect time to take advantage of the situation. Upon hearing my words, A flicker of delight passed through Gu Feng's eyes. You can come up with 100 million. Have you lost your mind from overwork, Mr. Gu? You're the one begging me here. Out of respect for our long-standing relationship, I'll give you a rock-bottom price, 50 million, impossible. The moment I finished speaking, Gu Feng shot it down, watching him fume with rage. I didn't react much. I just said coolly, you can think about this price. Shop around if you like, but for every day you delay, my offer drops by 5 million. With that, Gu Feng stormed out, slamming the door behind him. It seems it's time to put some pressure on Gu Feng. A while back, I had someone look into Mu Wan, and the findings were truly unexpected. I have to admit, Mu Wan is quite resourceful. If I hadn't been reborn and gained this god's eye view, I might not have been able to outmaneuver her. Mu Wan indeed held a secret that could ruin the Gu family. However, the secret wasn't about the Gu family, but about Wang Feng. She had accidentally discovered Wang Feng's secret. It turned out that Wang Feng, just like her, was unable to bear children, but if she truly is infertile, then Gu Feng's identity becomes rather intriguing. Now, everything falls into place. That explains why Wang Feng let Mu Wan into the family, and why she didn't hold her childlessness against her. It turns out they're cut from the same cloth. In that case, I'll just leak this information to Gu Feng. He can't go on living for over 20 years without knowing where he truly came from. By the way, I also discreetly had a message delivered to the shareholders who oppose Gu Feng. I believe Gu Feng will soon find himself under attack from all sides. He won't be able to hold on to his position as president of Gu Corporation for much longer. Gu Feng came looking for me in less than 3 days. This time, he clearly didn't have the energy to haggle with me anymore. 50 million, I'll sell. The price today is 35 million. I didn't even look up. Continuing with the other work in my hands, Gu Feng angrily accused me of taking advantage of the situation and being utterly unreasonable, ranting on, but I didn't even spare him a glance. Seeing that he was just about done, I finally began to show him the door. Sell it or get lost. Gu Feng gritted his teeth, but finally spat out a single word. Sold, afraid he might change his mind. I immediately had someone draft the contract, and we signed it. Once the whole process was done, I looked at the contract in my hand with great satisfaction. He was even willing to spare Gu Feng a smile. Mr. Gu, it's been a pleasure doing business. Gu Feng snorted coldly and stormed off without a shred of grace. Gu Feng cost the company a fortune and was promptly ousted by the Gu family shareholders. If the Gu family ancestors knew about this, they'd probably be turning in their graves. While I was busy building my career, Gu Feng and Mu Wan's wedding arrived right on schedule. However, because I had previously screwed Gu Feng over pretty badly, Mu Wan had already replaced me as a bridesmaid. Today, I'm just attending as a regular guest, but that doesn't dampen my desire to give them a gift. As for the red envelope, given our friendship, your well wishes are more than enough. The wedding venue was lavishly decorated. Gu Feng also invited many of his business associates, likely hoping to use the occasion to expand his network. When I arrived, a crowd of executives gathered around, praising me as a young achiever and a formidable woman. A few other companies have also handed me their business cards, expressing interest in collaboration. I exchanged pleasantries with a smile to each one. Just yesterday, the government issued an official notice. The market value of the plots of land I purchased earlier, especially the one Gu Feng sold to me, has multiplied several times over. The Shen family is about to rise. My popularity is only matched by how ridiculous Gu Feng looks. After all of this was originally his. The wedding ceremony officially began. Of the two, one looked utterly dejected while the other was beaming with joy. Gu Feng felt as if he were being forced into this marriage. The MC was guiding them through the proceedings, while the large screen displayed numerous photos of Gu Feng and Mu Wan. There were photos from their childhood all the way to adulthood. Just looking at these pictures, the two of them really did seem like a perfect match. However, after the photos finished, the video didn't end. There was an audio recording that followed. It was Mu Wan who had coaxed Wang Feng into revealing the truth, that she was unable to have children and that Gu Feng was not her biological son. Upon hearing this audio, Mu Wan's face turned pale. Down below, Wang Feng's face darkened. Seeing Mu Wan's guilty expression, she lunged straight at her. With a single slap, she sent Mu Wan sprawling to the floor. Then she straddled Mu Wan, pummeling her from all sides. It all happened so fast, before the onlookers could even process it. Mu Wan had already taken several blows. Gu Feng, standing to the side, was utterly dumbfounded, seeing her daughter being bullied. Mrs. Mu charged forward without a second thought. With Mrs. Mu joining the fray, Wang Feng was clearly at a disadvantage. The three of them brawled on the stage in the most primal way. It wasn't until Muin fainted that the onlookers finally snapped out of it and pulled the brawlers apart. The whole farce finally ended with the bride being beaten and sent to the hospital. Through the crowd, my eyes met Gu Feng's. I gave a cold sneer, then turned and walked away. Even without me in the picture, that family is doomed to a life of constant chaos and turmoil. After returning from the hospital, Muin moved directly into the Gu family home. She and Wan Feng were at each other's throats all day long at home, disturbing the neighbors' peace even late into the night. Gu Feng was failing in love, and even more so in business. At home, he had to face the constant bickering between his wife and his mother. At the office, he faced the strange looks and whispered gossip of those around him. With nowhere else to go, Gu Feng could only drown his sorrows at the bar day after day, but with his handsome looks, it was no surprise that plenty of women threw themselves at him. Gu Feng adopted a policy of never refusing but never taking responsibility, often staying out all night. By the time Mu Wan, who had been busy competing with Wan Feng, finally realized what was happening, it was too late. All she could do was repeatedly try to catch him in the act. The couple ended up as bitter enemies. Meanwhile, the Gu family gradually declined and moved out of our neighborhood. 5 years later, I had become a renowned female entrepreneur in the city. On the same day my story made the news, another local social incident was also reported. In the news, a man's domestic violence caused his wife, who had a heart condition, to suffer a relapse. Despite efforts to save her, she could not be revived and passed away. And even though the man's face was pixelated, I still recognized him. It was Gu Feng. Story 2. In the 4th year after Li Qingjia's passing, I went to his grave to talk to him, only to find it had been moved. I rushed home in a panic and told my son to call the police. My son sighed and said, "Mom, Dad was never buried there. He's resting together with Aunt Jiuying. He said he was forced to marry someone he didn't love in life, and his only wish was to be buried with the one he truly loved after death." The Jiuying he spoke of was the very woman, Li Qingjia's cherished memory, who had lingered in his heart for 30 years. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day Li Qingjia abandoned me, after my miscarriage, to go find Jiuying. I didn't beg this time. Instead, I quietly booked a ticket to leave. Hello everyone, and welcome to Glimmering Whispers of Love. I stayed at the clinic for 3 days and didn't check out until the pain in my abdomen became bearable. Li Qingjia never came to see me once in those 3 days. I had to handle everything myself, getting the medicine, receiving injections, and paying the bills. He was too busy comforting Jiuying, who believed she was forced into the marriage, wiping her tears and soothing her feelings. How could he possibly spare a thought for me? When I got home and was packing my bags, Li Qingjia walked in and cast a displeased glance around the house. "I've been gone for 3 days, and you couldn't even bother to tidy up the place. What a mess." To be fair, it was just an unmade bed and a few pieces of clothing lying around, but that's just how he always is with me. The slightest inconvenience and he puts on that sour face. I shot him a brief glance, my hands never stopping as I continued to put things away, and said flatly, "I just got out of the hospital." Li Qingjia paused for a moment, his lips pressed together as he looked at me for a while. Surprisingly, he offered to help me organize the wardrobe, his voice softening a little. "How are you recovering?" I let out a scoffing laugh, not expecting him to ask that. 3 days ago, when you abandoned me lying there in a pool of my own blood and rushed off to find Jiuying without a second thought. You never once looked back. It's fine," I said without looking up at him. As I packed all my clothes into the bag, Li Qingjia noticed what I was doing and asked casually, "Why are you separating our clothes? Take it out to wash." I clutched the bag, never once giving him a look. Clearly, he didn't care in the slightest what I intended to do either, giving a perfunctory nod without another word. After placing the bag in the woodshed, I turned and went back inside the house. Li Qingjia was holding an exquisitely wrapped bag in his arms. He waved at me with a gentle smile. "Come here. I went into town and bought this especially for you." I stood there quietly. He didn't get impatient. Instead, he walked towards me with a warm smile. He tore open the bag, took out the veil inside, and pinned it in my hair. He led me to the mirror, nodded with a smile. "When I saw the bride wearing this veil at the wedding, my first thought was how beautiful you'd look in it, so I bought it for you." Staring at my veiled reflection in the mirror, a wave of bitterness washed over me. In my past life, I waited a lifetime, but Li Qingjia never bought me a veil or suggested we have a proper wedding ceremony. And in this life, just because I didn't throw a tantrum, he went ahead and granted my wish. In the past, this would have moved me deeply, but now my heart is as still as water. I took off the veil and said with an expressionless face, "I don't like this." Li Qingjia hadn't anticipated this reaction from me. His face was a picture of disbelief as he glared at me, brows furrowed in anger. His expression seemed to say, "You really don't know what's good for you," he said in a curt tone. "Take it or leave it. I have something to tell you. Isn't the factory planning to select you as an advanced worker? Jiuying is right behind you in the rankings. You should go to the management and tell them you don't want the spot, and give it to Jiuying." My eyes dimmed as I looked at him. No wonder he was being so nice earlier. He was waiting for this moment. I earned that spot myself. It was a clear and concise way of stating my position. I wasn't going to give it up. He looked at me impatiently, his brow furrowed in deep irritation. Jiuying is married and living in the city now. Only model workers are eligible for urban jobs. As a woman, can't you try to understand the difficult position she's in? I scoffed. Jiuying is already a married woman, yet he still goes to such lengths to plan things out for her. No wonder he's been carrying a torch for her for over 30 years. I recalled my previous life, where my confirmed status as a model worker was suddenly revoked and awarded to Jiuying instead, judging by his attitude. It's likely he sabotaged my nomination for Jiuying's sake. Not a chance. I looked away and said calmly, "I earned this qualification on my own merit." My composed demeanor infuriated Li Qingjia. Clenching his fists, he said through gritted teeth, "Wu Li, I can't believe I married such a cold-hearted, unfeeling woman. You have no compassion at all." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the already rickety wooden frame rattled and groaned. Li Qingjia went into the city again and didn't come back all night. I only found out this news by asking the ticket seller. It was obvious who he went to see. In our previous life, he wouldn't have gone into the city right after a fight. At most, he'd have spent a night in the school office, waiting for me to swallow my pride and beg him to come home at the school gate the next morning. Or perhaps, I had no idea he'd even gone to the city. But in this life, I will never again crush my own self-respect just to please him. At the station, I bought a train ticket to Shenzhen for 5 days later, instead of rushing home. I took a stroll around the city. This was only my second time in the city. The last time, Li Qingjia had brought me here. As I walked along the street, I couldn't help but reminisce about the early days of my relationship with Li Qingjia. We met through a blind date. He's a very straightforward guy, not really the type who knows how to sweet-talk a girl. After just a few meetings, he asked me, "Want to go for a walk in the city?" As we walked through the city, he pointed out all sorts of interesting things to me. He bought me cotton candy, candied hawthorns, and lots of hair clips. That was the first time I tasted something so sweet it made my teeth ache. As we walked, he took my hand. I could feel his nervousness, even hear his heartbeat, when he said, "Ollie, I don't know how to properly treat a girl. I've heard that if you like someone, you should buy them things all the time." Back then, I didn't really understand what a proper confession was. I just sort of stumbled into a relationship with him. Had I known back then that Li Qingjia only came to the city so often to pursue Jiuying, I might not have looked forward to returning with such fervor afterwards. I waited faithfully by Li Qingjia's side for half a lifetime. It was only after Jiuying's untimely death from illness that his attitude towards me finally began to change. I thought my barren tree had finally blossomed, that my love had borne fruit at last. Little did I know it was all just a figment of my foolish, wishful thinking. In Li Qingjia's eyes, I'm just a marriage of convenience, a partner he settled for without love. His heart will forever belong to Jiuying alone. I was walking along the road when a familiar figure in the distance made me stop in my tracks. Li Qingjia was riding his bicycle with Jiuying on the back. She was smiling sweetly, her arms wrapped around his waist. They looked utterly blissful, until the moment he saw me. And the smile on his face instantly froze. It was Jiuying who got out of the car first and greeted me. She looked me over with a teasing glint in her eye and said with a laugh, "Ollie, are you here for Qingjia? He just told me you'd definitely come, begging him to come home." Her words were dripping with mockery and scorn. Li Qingjia walked over, pushing his bicycle, his brow furrowed with displeasure. "Who told you to come? Don't think I'm the same as before. That I'll just go home with you if you beg a little." Looking at his smug expression, I kept a straight face and said, "Just passing by." Li Qingjia's brow furrowed, clearly not buying my story. His tone softened a bit as he walked over to me. "Fine, I can't be bothered to argue with you. Let's just go back. I don't need it." I put some distance between us and walked away. Li Qingjia grabbed my wrist, his expression displeased, caught completely off guard by his sudden, forceful pull. I stumbled and my stomach hit a bicycle parked by the roadside. A sharp pain shot through my entire body, and I doubled over, curling into a tight ball. Panic flashed across Li Qingjia's face as he quickly crouched down beside me, his voice urgent. "What's wrong? Did you hurt your stomach? Come on, I'm taking you to the clinic." I winced, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead from the pain, and could only manage a weak nod in his direction. He helped me up, settled me onto the bicycle, and had barely pedaled a few feet when Jiuying suddenly let out a sharp cry. Li Qingjia quickly stopped the bike and asked her in a panic. Jiuying slumped to the ground, pointing toward her own ankle as she looked at him. "What's wrong?" "I think I've sprained my ankle." Li Qingjia set down his bicycle and headed over to her. I knew it then. Once he went to her, he definitely wouldn't be taking me to the clinic anymore. Sure enough, after only a moment's hesitation, Li Qingjia carefully helped me down, saying with remorse, "Jiuying's situation is more serious. Wait for me. I'll come back for you after I take her. Just hang on a little longer." He hurried off with Jiuying on his bike, never once looking back at me. I wasn't foolish enough to keep waiting for him. I forced myself up and went to the pharmacy to buy some painkillers. After getting home, I didn't rush to leave right away. I booked the train ticket for the day before the factory's outstanding worker results were announced, even though I knew the place would be downsizing and collapsing within a few years. But I didn't want to just hand over the spot that should have been mine to Jiuying. After all, in my past life, Jiuying used this spot, which was rightfully mine, to mock me repeatedly and snatched away so many things I cherished. I went to the factory and made it clear that the spot had to be given to me. It was what I deserved. On the very day the selection results were due, Section Chief Wang had someone call me into the factory. Li Qingjia and Jiuying were there too. He hadn't come back since his last trip into the city. "You must have been by Jiuying's side day and night these past few days, tending to her with such care." His gaze fell upon me, heavy as a 1,000-year frost, and he growled in a low, furious voice, "Didn't I tell you to withdraw from the selection?" I replied airily, "I never agreed to that." Jiuying's eyes were red from crying. Her face crumpled as she tugged at Li Qingjia's sleeve and said, "Qingjia, I believe you will give me the justice I deserve." Li Qingjia looked at her, the coldness in his eyes instantly melting away, replaced by a heartache that filled his face. He handed her a handkerchief to dab the corners of her eyes, his voice unbelievably gentle as he said, "Yes, I will help you." Section Chief Wang coughed awkwardly a couple of times and said to me, "Wu Li, Qingjia says you want to withdraw from the model worker selection. Is that really what you want?" He was a shrewd one. A single glance told him exactly what was going on. His words were clearly in my favor. I shook my head. "I have no intention of withdrawing my candidacy." Section Chief Wang nodded and said to Li Qingjia with a look of resignation, "You see, Wu Li herself hasn't said she's willing to give up her spot in the selection. Nothing anyone else says really counts." Jiuying cried even harder, burrowing further into Li Qingjia's arms, and sobbed, "Qingjia, you promised you'd help me." Li Qingjia pulled her into a one-armed embrace. The sight of his tender, affectionate concern made my eyes sting. All this time, I had always thought he was a gentle and reserved person. He would never show any intimacy in front of others. Every gesture, a hug, holding hands, would make him recoil in aversion. Once, when I went to pick him up from work, my finger just accidentally brushed against his pinky. His face darkened on the spot, and he tore into me in front of the neighbors, giving me a thorough dressing down. He said my behavior tarnished his image as an educator, that I was thoughtless and never considered his position. For the longest time, I thought that was just how he was, forcing myself to swallow the hurt of his reproach and convincing myself to accept his temperament. Finally, when I saw how wholeheartedly he could love someone, only then did I fully understand. It was simply because he didn't love me. Li Qingjia's voice snapped me out of my reverie. Holding the person in his arms tighter, he spoke with resolute determination. "If I recall correctly, doesn't the factory have a rule? One of the criteria for being a model worker is that you must be married." Section Chief Wang froze for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, there is such a regulation." Immediately after, Jiuying turned her head and shot me a provocative look. My fingernails dug deep into my palms, a bitter taste filled my mouth, and I knew exactly what he was going to say next. So, in my past life, for Jiuying's sake, he had actually laid bare my scars and secrets for all to hear. Without a moment's hesitation, he spoke up in front of everyone in the office. "Wu Li and I never got a marriage certificate. Her parents married her off as a child bride to an old man, and her household registration booklet is still held over there." "Enough," I roared, my voice ragged, cutting him off. Fighting back tears, I stared at him with vacant eyes and let out a scornful laugh. He clearly promised he would never tell this secret to anyone else. That was the dark, heart-wrenching secret of my life, yet he broke his promise to me, all for Jiuying. The pain in my chest was so intense I could barely breathe. "So this is what it feels like to be utterly disappointed in someone." I composed myself and said to Section Chief Wang, "He's right, there's absolutely nothing between us. I don't want the outstanding worker title anymore. Then, turning to Li Qingjia, she said in a flat, weary tone, I'm giving this qualification to your beloved Jiuying, from now on. We're done. Everyone in the office was stunned, trying to process the news. Section Chief Wang, standing to the side, watched with concern but remained silent. It was Jiuying who finally spoke, her eyes glistening with tears yet smiling. Section Chief Wang, does that mean that outstanding worker selection should go to me now? Li Qingjia kept his lips pressed tightly together, staring at me in silence, his eyes betraying a mix of anxiety and regret. I didn't acknowledge his gaze. Since the words were already out of his mouth, whether he still felt any guilt towards me was irrelevant. I turned to Section Chief Wang and said, Chief, if there's nothing else, I'll be on my way. By the time Section Chief Wang registered what was happening, I was already at the office door. He suddenly shouted out, No, you are absolutely the one who deserves to be named model worker this time. I stopped in my tracks. When I turned to look at Section Chief Wang, his eyes were already brimming with tears. He continued, Wu Li, none of us knew you had lived through such hardship before. Now that we know, we certainly don't look down on you for it. Whether you have a marriage prospect or not, your performance at the factory is beyond question. Everyone knows the kind of treatment a child bride is subjected to. Coldness, neglect, abuse, every terrible word you can think of has been my reality. My very birth was nothing but a transaction, a deal for money. I can never forget the feeling of suffocating despair when I was sent to the house of a man 30 years my senior, a man who was paralyzed from the waist down. It took a whole year, but I finally managed to escape from that place. I fled to a place where no one knew my past, believing I could finally have a fresh start. I told Li Qingjia that secret because he was the only one who was ever kind to me. Little did I know, he had already exposed the secret I thought was so well hidden in our previous life. It's fine, Section Chief Wang, let her have it if she wants it. Also, my resignation hasn't been approved yet. Please try to process it as quickly as possible. I felt no attachment. As soon as I finished speaking, I wanted to leave. Li Qingjia chased after me again. He looked hesitant, taking a long moment before he finally spoke. Ollie, I'm sorry. I only told her because I was desperate and didn't know what else to do. Seeing how I didn't fight back or make a scene, a flicker of genuine guilt finally surfaced in him. I let out a scornful laugh, finding him utterly pathetic, and shot him a cold, disdainful look. Don't be sorry. After all, she's the one you love most. It's not like we ever meant anything to each other anyway. This is exactly what I deserve. Li Qingjia's jaw tightened, and he said in a low voice, Don't say that. I only see her as a very good friend. How could we have no relationship? We're husband and wife. Everyone knows that. Just 10 minutes ago, he was trying to distance himself from Jiuying and me, and now he's saying this to salvage his pathetic sense of guilt. I responded coldly, You don't need to say these unnecessary things. I turned to bid farewell to Section Chief Wang. I'll be taking my leave now. Chief Wang. Li Qingjia hurried after me a few steps. Where are you going? None of your business, I said coldly, brushing past him without so much as a glance back. Li Qingjia stood there, rooted to the spot. After what felt like an age, he shouted at my retreating figure, Come home early, I'll be waiting for you. I rushed into the city and squeezed onto the train bound for Shenzhen. Before I left, I checked my passbook and saw I had 15,000 yuan saved up, nearly a decade's worth of savings. Once in Shenzhen, I rented a tiny room and settled in. From my memories of my past life, the textile mill would be laying off workers and collapsing within 5 years. What developed rapidly instead were appliance factories, the ones manufacturing color TVs and refrigerators. Shenzhen was the place with the largest talent pool and the closest proximity to raw materials. My funds were insufficient. With the money I had on hand, I could only manage to open a breakfast stall in Shenzhen. I'm tired every day. But seeing my savings grow makes it all worthwhile. 2 weeks later, my old village somehow got hold of my new address and sent me a letter. The signature showed it was from Zhou Qing, the only person in the village who had supported my decision to leave. We were in the same boat, both unloved by our husbands, spending our days anxiously waiting for a man to come home. In her letter, she said she admired my courage for leaving, asked what I'd been up to lately, and wished me all the best for the future. I saw in her letter that the title of advanced worker was still mine. Section Chief Wang not only didn't give the qualification to Jiuying, but also accused her of cheating and bribing the judges, resulting in her being disqualified from the selection process for 5 years. She also mentioned that Li Qingjia has become utterly despondent since I left. Every day after work, he just stands at the front door. When people ask why he doesn't go inside, He says he's waiting for you to come back. I wrote her back, telling her that if things ever got tough, she could come find me anytime. I was back to my old routine, rising before dawn and pushing my tricycle cart to sell breakfast. These days were exhausting, but compared to the time I spent by Li Qingjia's side, they felt downright blissful. At least I didn't have to worry or feel heartbroken anymore, wondering if Li Qingjia would cast me aside. Not even a week had passed when Zhou Qing showed up at the door of my rented room, a travel bag in hand. I had just finished pushing my cart back. I smiled at her and asked, "Made up your mind?" With a light laugh, Zhou helped me push the cart into the courtyard and softly acknowledged with a sound. After that, she rented the place next door to mine. The two of us started selling breakfast together, and our earnings doubled compared to before. A month later, we had managed to save up 40,000 yuan between us. Without a moment's delay, we headed to the market to inquire about raw materials for electrical appliances. As the saying goes, the road to success is never smooth. We spent several days running around but still couldn't find suitable materials. Zhou Qing told me, "I found out about a workshop at the market today. It produces electrical appliances. The owner is from out of town and I heard he's planning to leave. So he's selling the business. Let's go take a look tomorrow. If it's suitable, we could take over the workshop." The next day, we tracked down the owner and had him show us the workshop. The location was good, the workshop wasn't too large, and it was well within our means. "Mr. Su, what's your asking price for this workshop?" After the tour, I was fairly satisfied and asked about the price. Mr. Su looked between me and Zhou Qing for a moment before posing an unrelated question. "Do you have any skilled technicians with experience in electrical appliance manufacturing? Do you understand this industry?" That question really caught us off guard. Zhou Qing and I had plunged into this venture without any real knowledge of the field. He understood the moment he saw the glance exchanged between me and Zhou Qing. After a moment of deep thought, Boss Su looked at the workshop and said, "This represents half a lifetime of my hard work. If it weren't for urgent matters back in my hometown, I would never consider selling it." An idea occurred to me, and I tentatively suggested, "Boss Su, how about this? Instead of buying the workshop outright, we invest in it. You remain the owner, in charge of the technical side. The two of us would act as shareholders, responsible for the sales going forward." Boss Su, his eyes clouded with thought, pondered for a long while before finally agreeing. Zhou Qing and I were over the moon. To celebrate, we even made a special trip to a restaurant. Our elation lasted right up until we got home, only to see the figures of Li Qingjia and Zhou Qing's husband at the doorstep. "Ollie," Li Qingjia stared at me for a long time, his eyes rimmed with red. He seemed to struggle for words, but in the end, all that came out was a hoarse whisper of my name. I shot him a sidelong glance, the brief flicker of joy I'd felt now completely gone. My face was like ice as I said, "What are you doing here?" Flustered by my frosty demeanor, Li Qingjia fell silent for a moment. Then, in a timid voice, he said, "I came to find you. If I remember correctly, there's nothing left between us." I couldn't even be bothered to give him a glance. I truly couldn't fathom how his previously aloof demeanor had suddenly shifted to this. He even came all this way to find me. Li Qingjia pulled something from his bag, wrapped in an envelope, and pressed it into my hand. He said, "Here's the medal for being named an advanced worker, and the bonus. Section Chief Wang asked me to give it to you." I held the round medal in my hand, feeling a pang of bitterness in my heart. In my past life, I cried for ages after missing out on this award. Li Qingjia bought me a cheap, knockoff medal instead. I was over the moon back then. Thinking he went out of his way to buy it because he cared about my feelings, it never occurred to me that he only felt a surge of guilt after seeing me cry, simply because he had exploited my weakness to disqualify me from the selection. I took it, raising my eyes to give him a cold, sweeping glance. "If there's nothing else, I'll be heading home now." Home was just a few steps away, but Li Qingjia grabbed my wrist, and I couldn't move an inch. I looked down at his hand with a hint of irony and reminded him, "We're in public. Aren't you worried about damaging your respectable teacher's image by manhandling me like this?" Li Qingjia's posture stiffened noticeably, yet he still didn't let go of my hand. After a long pause, he said in a muffled voice, "There's something else. I'm here to take you home." His words left me utterly speechless. I looked up at him, and after a long pause, let out a cold laugh before asking, "What?" Planning to take me back so Joey can vent her frustration about not getting the advanced worker title on me. This was his old trick, one he'd used in our past life and was using again now, always offering a sweet, only to slap me back to reality. It made me realize that every sudden gesture of kindness from him had an ulterior motive, and that motive was unquestionably for Jiao. Li Qingjia grabbed my hand and pulled it back sharply. sending me stumbling unprepared into his arms. In this, our first embrace, his hands held me tightly, almost imprisoningly, around my waist. His voice trembled as he said, "I know I was wrong about what happened last time. I've been thinking it over these past few days. I haven't been attentive enough to you before, but I'll change. Please, come home with me." For him to speak to me like that was already a sign of him swallowing his pride, but my heart was a placid lake, utterly unmoved, and I pushed him away with force. Li Qingjia's face was a mix of panic, confusion, bewilderment, and a touch of anger. "I'm already begging you like this, so stop being difficult. Just what more do you want from me?" It finally dawned on me that he hadn't changed one bit, that earlier show of goodwill was just a cover. In front of me, he will always be the one who, emboldened by a sense of being favored, remains fearless and perpetually holds the upper hand. So, when I don't respond to his attempts to please me, he quickly approaches the brink of impatience and anger. I faced his irritation with perfect composure and calmly retorted, "Li Qingjia, you came to me of your own accord, and now you're acting like you've already humbled yourself enough. Don't you find that utterly ridiculous?" Li Qingjia's expression was grim as he stared at me with a heavy look. After a moment of tense silence, it was he who softened his tone first. "All right. That was my fault just now. I spoke too harshly. I've just been so worried about you these past few days. You haven't come home for a month. If Zhou Qingli hadn't left her husband and tracked down your location, I wouldn't have even known you'd run off to such a faraway place." As he spoke, he kept watching me with a probing gaze, as if trying to uncover the emotions hidden beneath my composure. What was he hoping to see? Surprise, shock, excitement, perhaps. He probably thought a few sweet words would be enough to make me follow him back. But that will never happen. I turned my face away and saw Zhou Qing, who was also dealing with someone with the same impatience I felt. How many times do I have to say it? We're done. I had no patience left to keep dealing with Li Qingjia. I shook him off, went inside, and locked the door. Li Qingjia stayed by the door, knocking incessantly, his voice pleading as he called out, "Ollie, that was my fault. Please come out so we can talk." Before long, my neighbor from next door came out and yelled, "What's with all the knocking? They clearly don't want to see you. You're disturbing my kids' homework." After that, the knocking stopped. Li Qingjia apologized profusely before finally leaving. I enthusiastically prepared 3 dishes and brought them to Zhou Qing's room, hoping for a good long chat, only to find she had cooked 3 dishes herself. We exchanged a knowing smile. Zhou Qing said, "I never thought I'd see the day he'd come crawling to me like that." The table was overflowing with 6 dishes, and I laughed with pure joy. It felt like a lifetime had passed, and only now was my life truly beginning. We cracked open 2 bottles of soda, clinked our glasses, and I laughed without a care in the world. Boss Su agreed to it, too. I feel like this is what a fresh start really is, breaking free from Li Qingjia, leaving behind that relationship that made me doubt myself. And now on the verge of starting my own business. Each one of these is a blessing in its own right. The next day, after Zhou Qing and I had finished setting up our stall, we arranged to meet with Mr. Su. He explained to us how to manage the workshop staff and how to inspect the finished products. He also made a suggestion that Zhou Qing and I should enroll in a mechanical manufacturing course. We didn't need to become experts. Just learn the basic processes and standard specifications for electrical appliance production. It was clear that Mr. Su had a deep attachment to this workshop. The day before we left, he reminded us to make sure we stopped by to check on things every single day. I waved at him with a smile. "Don't worry, we're shareholders now too." Zhou Qing and I took his advice and signed up for the course. We'd make money from the breakfast stall. Waiting for the day we could expand the workshop into a proper factory. Another half a month passed. The workshop produced a batch of finished color TVs, and Boss Su returned from his hometown. When we discussed the issue of selling, he said, "There's a tricky problem now. The cost of raw materials has gone up quite a bit, but the set price for a color TV in Shenzhen is only 260 yuan. If we raise our price, the stock will just sit there unsold." Zhou Qing nudged me a couple of times as he listened. "Do you remember how much a color TV sells for in our village? I think it's something like over 470 yuan. I nodded. "All the color TVs over in our area are shipped from Shenzhen, so of course the prices are higher." As soon as the words left my mouth, a light bulb went off. I slapped the table. We could ship the TVs down south to sell them. We quickly worked out the shipping and truck rental costs. The math showed we could make over 100 yuan more per TV than selling them in Shenzhen. Zhou Qing and I put our breakfast stall on hold for a week. We rented a truck, hired a driver, and headed south. where we sold a whole truckload of color TVs. After returning to Shenzhen, we counted our earnings from the trip, over 10,000 yuan. When we shared the news with Boss Su, we were all over the moon. I then told him about our future plans, to use that money to buy a truck, hire 2 more drivers, and stay in the transport business going forward. Boss Su thought the plan was viable. He pulled 30,000 out of the 40,000 we had previously invested and told the 2 of us to handle it as we saw fit. After 3 months of implementing this plan, we not only earned enough to expand the workshop but also made a name for ourselves in the southern market. We even established a dedicated transport route. Any orders from the southern market would be 20 yuan cheaper if they sourced from us. Section Chief Wan from the village had heard I was the one selling the color TVs. He promptly wrote me a letter asking if I had any connections. I told him about the plan to expand the workshop into a factory and that he could invest if he was interested. Section Chief Wang got together with several other party secretaries from the factory to discuss it, and the 5 of them pooled together 50,000 yuan to invest in us. Boss Su found a prime location and moved the workshop there with great fanfare. In just 2 months, Zhou Qing and I found ourselves transformed into shareholders of the electrical appliance factory. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Boss Su beamed with joy and emotion. "Wu Li, you must have some kind of sixth sense. How is everything going so smoothly? We've already set up an electrical appliance factory in less than half a year." Zhou Qing also said with a smile, "When I first came to find you, I never imagined we'd make money. I just wanted to do something of my own. I never expected we'd achieve something like this." I smiled and complimented them both, saying, "It's all thanks to everyone working together." After the ribbon-cutting ceremony, we went out for a meal. The restaurant was a bit stuffy, so I stepped outside for a couple of breaths of fresh air. That's when I saw Li Qingjia outside the restaurant. Running into him wasn't really a surprise. Ever since he came to Shenzhen to see me 4 months ago, only to be met with a cold shoulder and then disappear for a few days, he'd been popping up in Shenzhen frequently after that, showing up in front of me time and again, looking like he had something to say but never quite daring to say it. For 4 straight months, things just stayed like that, but I kept turning a blind eye and ignored him, though I'd sometimes find a boxed meal hanging at my door or new clothes in a plastic bag. In the end, I just went ahead and moved out, buying a 50 square meter place to live in by myself. Since then, this was the first time I'd seen him in nearly a month. When Section Chief Wang wrote to me, he was quite cryptic. He mentioned something about taking an unpaid leave of absence, saying he was going to look for someone and would be back. He also said that Jiuying had been fired from the factory, and it was Li Qingjia who personally reported her. They said she had an affair while married, and the factory couldn't tolerate an employee with such poor moral character. Now Jiuying is busy begging her husband in the city not to divorce her. Li Qingjia seemed to be deliberately waiting for me outside. When I came out, he walked toward me step by step and said in a low voice, "I have something I need to say to you." I looked at him coldly. There's nothing left for us to say. Just as I was about to leave, he grabbed my arm, but only for a moment, letting go almost instantly. His voice was hoarse. He kept his head down as if he couldn't bear to meet my eyes, and with a hint of a sob in his voice, he said, "After saying that, I gave up all hope." I stood in silence for a long time, watching him in the wind. Li Qingjia looked gaunt and desolate in his thin, worn-out clothes, as if a single word could shatter him. That face was still the same handsome one I had loved in my past life, but the man who once stood before me was always so spirited and dismissive. "I've never seen you look so meek and submissive before. Go on, you have 5 minutes." I glanced at my watch and said coldly. Li Qingjia said urgently, I've been in Shenzhen this whole time, right by your side." I murmured softly, "I saw." He kept looking at me, but still couldn't detect any emotion on my face. He said dejectedly, "Ollie, I was really unwilling to accept it. I felt that after all these years between us, how could we separate because of Jiuying? I've regretted my impulsiveness countless times. I hate myself for being so weak-willed, always thinking that since Jiuying once saved my father's life, I had to repay her, and in doing so, I ended up hurting you with your secret." My eyes were dim, and I remained silent. Half a year had passed, and he still didn't know why I had chosen to leave him. He just felt that if he hadn't spilled all my secrets back then, perhaps I wouldn't have left without a trace of regret. The wind tousled his hair, which had grown much longer. His stubble was unkempt, a far cry from the respectable, teacherly image he was supposed to project. His face is right before my eyes, a visage I've seen countless times in a past life, yet my vision is strangely blurred now, leaving only a faint outline. Perhaps it was love that etched his features so deeply into my mind, and now that the love is gone, the specifics have faded. leaving behind nothing but a hazy silhouette. His voice choked with emotion. He continued. I've seen it these past few days. You're better off without me. I pulled my coat tighter around me, watching his tears with the same cold detachment he once showed me in a previous life. After a long silence, I finally said, Li Qingjia, it wasn't just one single thing that made me finally decide to leave you. He lifted his bloodshot eyes to look at me, his gaze filled with melancholy and confusion, and answered hoarsely, I know. I haven't been attentive enough to you. I rejected his answer and said earnestly, because I can see our future. I can see that 20 years from now, you'll still be fond of Jiuying. This whole thing is just a minor episode, a temporary denial of your feelings for her. He shook his head, firmly refuting me. No, that's not it. I've seen my own heart clearly now. What I've always felt for her is nothing but gratitude. Ollie, the one I've always loved is you. I'm used to having you by my side, chattering away. The house feels so quiet and uncomfortable without you. This lifetime has brought many things I never saw coming. Events so surprising they could only be described as astonishing. Li Qingjia's confession to me, his declaration of love, was one of those moments. I calmly cut him off. Then you'll have to get used to it. Because I won't be by your side in the future. His lips suddenly pressed together, his brow furrowed, not in anger, but in sorrow. For the first time, I found myself using the word pitiful to describe Li Qingjia. He kept his eyes downcast, wanting to speak but not daring to, whether from the wind or overwhelming grief. His shoulders trembled incessantly. After my words, he became like a soulless puppet, staring blankly at the floor as tears streamed down his face. I remained indifferent and continued, actually, it's for the best that you said it. At least now, nothing can hurt me anymore. I won't be hurt by anyone ever again. Ollie. Li Qingjia looked at me deeply, his lips parting several times before the words finally coalesced into a single phrase. I'm sorry. I ignored his apology, instead glancing at my watch with impatience and saying, time's up, I should go in now. Li Qingjia didn't pursue me further. He just stood there, rooted to the spot in a daze, and he was still there when we came out after finishing our meal. When Zhou Qing saw him, she whispered, how did he track me down here? I said offhandedly, who knows, he's just being pathetic. Zhou Qing nodded and said to me with a smile, you know how my ex-husband was absolutely refusing to agree to the divorce. Well, he finally gave in a while ago. Now I don't have a single thing to worry about anymore. That's fantastic. Let's go out for another nice meal tomorrow to celebrate. As I turned my head and smiled at her, I caught sight of Li Qingjia frozen in place. He had been watching me, his gaze following, so the moment I noticed him, our eyes met. Li Qingjia forced a stiff, awkward smile, just like he had the first time we met in our past life. But back then, what I thought was, he's really quite adorable. But now, I just felt weary. I turned my gaze forward and kept walking. The three of us started our own company and created our own electrical appliance brand. It sold very well in the southern market initially, which attracted many companies to partner with us. With that first pot of gold I made, I also told Zhou Qing that the price of commercial housing would rise in a few years. Without even asking me where I'd heard the news, Zhou Qing poured all of his savings into commercial housing. Together, we also invested in the construction industry and got into the real estate business. The dividends from the appliance factory are distributed quarterly. Since Section Chief Wang and the others had already issued the dividends, I gave him a call. I asked for his bank account number so I could transfer the money to him. Section Chief Wang said, I never intended to get this money back. You keep it. I found it strange and absolutely refused, insisting on sending the money back. Section Chief Wang hesitated for a long time before finally telling me the truth. Wu Li, actually, this 50,000 yuan was given to you by Li Qingjia. He said if he gave it to you personally, you'd definitely refuse, so he asked me to give it to you under the guise of investing in you. He said that in everyone's eyes, my business venture was just a small-time operation, and it was bound to fail before long. No one had any intention of investing in me. After I told Li Qingjia, he handed over his bank book and told him to give me the money. After some thought, I decided to send the money to Section Chief Wang. Tell him the factory isn't what it used to be. Keep this money to support the laid-off workers in the future. The people at the factory were never unkind to me. This money is my way of repaying their past kindness. Zhou Qing finally got her divorce papers from her ex-husband. She dragged me to a photo studio to take a picture. Compared to when we first started out a year ago, we both changed. We're braver and more resilient now. Zhou Qing stroked the photo, her laughter blurring into tears. With glistening eyes, she said to me, Wu Li, I never imagined I'd get to live a life like this one day. Tears of joy welled up in my eyes too. All that's in the past now. From now on, things will be good, I'm sure of it. That's all for today's story. If you've listened this far, please leave a comment saying, have a great day every day. We at Wakewang wish you happiness each and every day.